Okay. Okay, there's nothing better than to start the day with some Seattle grunge. Yeah. Good morning, Bangalore. I'm humbled by how many people are in the room today. Thank you all for your interest in Amazon and in the Amazon Web Services. And I hope that when you leave today, you've been inspired, hopefully, by the technologies that we've built to go and build great products. I think if there's something that the Amazon Web Services are about, is to provide you with a platform where you can pursue your dreams on. Yeah, and we've really built this platform in a way without gatekeepers, without anybody holding you back. You can build whatever you want on this platform because you are in total control of it. So my talk this morning, in essence, is just a little bit of a warm-up, because the real important thing for you will be to listen to our customers that have been willing to take your questions. And if any of the other past events or any predictor of today, you will probably find that particular session to be of most interest to you. And also hope, of course, next to that, that will give you lots of technical information and insights how to think about your business on top of AWS. So my talk is a bit split into sort of three parts. One part is give you a little bit of the state of the art. Where are we with AWS? Then talk a bit about what sets Amazon aside, what sets AWS aside from other providers in this world. And whether that is other cloud providers or hardware providers or data centers and things like that. And then sort of the third part of the talk is about now that we've been in this business for 6 years, what we've seen is that we have had significant impact on the way that businesses operate. Not only at the technology level, but also at the business level. And so these sort of transformations that we've seen happening, I'll go through a number of those. So first and foremost, we are now in 8 regions around the world. And our goal is to continuously expand those regions. I'm not going to tell you how that little priority list looks like, which region is going to go next. But we'll continue to work on this and color in most continents in the fullness of time. And what we certainly do is very aggressively move ahead with adding CloudFront POPs in those locations where we get feedback from customers that they can really benefit from very low latency access to our content delivery network. And it's actually not only that we're on Earth. Yeah, I think we're really proud to be partners with NASA on actually receiving their data coming from the Mars Curiosity rover and processing that, storing it on Amazon S3 and then processing it in EC2. If you come to the talk this afternoon about big data, I'll be going in more detail about how they are actually using our services to support the rover program. There's hundreds of thousands of businesses at this moment making use of the Amazon Web Services. And I just picked here a few. Those are the sort of modern, popular internet programs that you probably all are using. I think most of us enjoy quite a few of these in terms of sort of the productivity tools. Maybe many of you will be using Evernote. Many of you will be using Dropbox. Many of you will be using SlideShare or any of the other tools, maybe in your daily business. And there's many others that are more on the sort of modern social consumer side of things, like Pinterest and Instagram and Yelp. And many of these other tools are all powered. We're all proud to power them with AWS. And quite a few of them will actually tell you that they wouldn't have been able to grow to the point where they are without the help of something like the Amazon Web Services Cloud. Of course, it is not just about young businesses or internet businesses. Almost from the beginning, enterprises knew that cloud was way too good a deal for them as well. The financial services industry, almost from the beginning, knew exactly what they could do with access to 5,000 or 10,000 nodes to do sort of create dual calculations and Monte Carlo simulations such that they could create an edge at market open. So almost from the beginning, enterprises have been important customers to us. And these are just a few of them as well. You know, you have big names on there: Samsung, Shell, New York Times, Newsweek. You know, whether it's, there isn't a industry vertical that at this moment is not making use of the Amazon Web Services. Yeah, and whether that is gas and oil, or whether that is the media, or whether it's advertising, or whether it's healthcare, or insurance, or financial industry, all of them are making use of the Amazon Web Services because the benefits are just too good to pass up. Of course, also in Asia Pacific, and there's quite a few of our Indian customers here as well. You know, of course, we have later the panel with our customers, but this is just a few examples of maybe household names that you know of. Some of these have been on our panels here in Bangalore in the past. Redbus is probably a very well-known name among you, but also enterprises here, Tata Sky, NDTV, and you'll hear from some of our other enterprise customers later today as well. And it's not only actually that we are serving enterprises and younger businesses. Government agencies all around the world are making use of our services as well, because for them, they actually are in exactly the same situation that most other enterprises are in as well. You know, they also have a lack of capital. Yeah, and any dollar that they can save, that they can keep in their pocket, they can actually spend on programs that are relevant for their citizens. And they also want to go faster to market. They don't want to do these programs anymore that they think of now and then might take 2 or 3 or 4 years to actually deliver. They want to start thinking about doing things now and actually getting them in the hands of their citizens within 6 to 9 months. And so in the US, where the federal government has taken a very innovative approach to actually using cloud services, they have what's called a cloud-first strategy for the federal agencies. That meaning that every federal agency is supposed to consider cloud first for any new services that they are building. And I'm now collecting all these beautiful logos or seals, as they are called in the US. And there's more than 150 agencies in the US now running services on top of the Amazon Web Services cloud. Of course, we couldn't exist, or we couldn't have this success without the help of our partners. And there's partners always in sort of 2 categories. One is the system integrators that help many of our larger customers. I've been told I should shut up when the train comes by. It's gone. Okay. Of course, there's system integrators which often help our customers actually onto the cloud. And then there's a whole collection of independent software vendors, ISVs, that build their products specifically for the cloud, because that is where the modern CIO or the modern IT decision maker is looking towards to actually build and buy his services from. Quite a few system integrators in the Indian AWS partner program. Some of them are, let's say, smaller names. Others are clearly household names. Actually, I think these are not system integrators. These are ISVs, if I'm not mistaken. And these are the system integrators. So forget the titles that were on top. Quite a few of these, of course, companies like Wipro and Infosys, CSS, Mahendra Sindri, are actually worldwide household names, at least for enterprises, how they build their services. And a number of others, I think I would like to call out Kulisa here from Bangalore, are actually having a dedicated service helping smaller and medium and also larger sized businesses onto the platform. And so we see system integrators that are large as well as small having a great impact on how customers get to the cloud. Now, if we look at what are these enterprises doing when they're on the cloud, you know, and there's sort of 4, I think maybe even 5 different areas where we see enterprises having already aggressively moved into the cloud. One of them is truly in the area of standard business applications. Companies like Shell have moved or are moving pieces of their core fundamental IT functions from production into the cloud. A company like Lionsgate actually runs 27 SAP ERP systems, and 2/3 of those are now running on AWS. And so you see a whole range of these services being moved onto AWS, mainly because the original vendors, whether it's Oracle or SAP or Lawson or Sage, and you can go with a very long range of products, all have made sure that their products are certified for production on top of the AWS cloud. And we see that with many of our partners here in India as well. I think Ramco, for example, has their products also available on top of our platform, fully supported. And there's a whole range of ISVs that make sure that their products are all supported by them to run on top of the AWS cloud. And that helps many of our customers bring their production systems on AWS as well. The next sort of big bucket of where enterprises are moving their services to the cloud or are running already in the cloud is, of course, those are web applications. Many of these companies, many companies are looking at the internet as the sort of main distribution channel for many of the things that they're going to do. Now, if you look at the insurance industry, if you look at the financial industry, most of those will not actually be offering new services through agents or through tellers. They will actually move to the internet first. So financial services, for example, and the insurance industry is moving many of their processing, many of their customer interaction onto the internet. And as such, you need a platform that is capable of dealing with any level of success that you might encounter. And cloud is an ideal platform for that. I would like to call out one here that is particularly interesting, Samsung. As you know, Samsung makes really beautiful TVs. But also these beautiful TVs called smart TVs are just like in many other cases, they're only as good as the software that runs on them. No matter how beautiful the device is, the real functionality of these kind of devices, and whether those are smart TVs or tablets or whatever, are often just dictated by the software that runs on it. So for a company like Samsung, it was really important that the smart media hub, the software that has to run somewhere in the internet, that actually connects functionality from Samsung to the individual TVs, was absolutely 100% reliable and scalable. Because they couldn't afford that, let's say you switch on your television and that gets a 404 page not found, or something like that. And so they realized that if they would have to build the infrastructure themselves, they had to make major investments into that. And I think the initial planning was that they would spend $34 million just to get off the ground. And then they started realizing that it's not a matter of just spending money on hardware, you actually have to become experts on managing and running that hardware at that scale. So they decided to actually start using AWS for that, and the Samsung Smart Media Hub that all of you actually probably make use of if you haven't a Samsung Smart TV, runs now worldwide in the different regions of AWS and provides Samsung with a platform that is absolutely reliable and scalable, and saves them $34 million in the process, just to get started. It's clear that big data and high-performance computing is an area where we are, as cloud providers, very closely aligned with. I like to believe that many of the things that we see happening in big data are only there because they are enabled by cloud. And I'll be talking for quite a while this afternoon about sort of the details of the kind of things that our customers are doing on the cloud with big data, but also sort of what are sort of the basic principles around big data when you actually have to operate it in practice. Big data is a lot more than just analytics. It's how do you collect data, how do you store data, how do you organize it, and then how do you analyze it, and then how do you share it, and then often with loops in it. So if you're interested in those kind of topics, come to my talk this afternoon. A lot of customers actually are making use of that, whether it's Unilever or Ticketmaster that does sort of that does pricing mechanisms using big data, Razorfish that does advertisement targeting for their customers. There isn't almost a company that is not considering big data because they want to understand better what their customers are doing. And then sort of the last bucket is that of disaster recovery and archiving, what I would call basic IT services. Because many IT departments are looking towards cloud to actually help them progress as well, to really help them find new strategies to be much more agile towards their individual business units. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that I've heard from an enterprise, from a business unit in the enterprise that would say that, well, in our organization, IT is the blocker. Whatever we want to get done, IT will actually delay it forever. And most IT organizations actually want to be the enabler of innovation. And I think cloud is the ideal partner for many of our CIOs and for many IT departments to actually start developing core IT functionality, and whether that is disaster recovery or archiving or helping with services that go off lease and things like that, that make it a lot more easier, that give you a lot more flexibility. And the agility actually really help you to become an IT department that really serves the needs of the individual business units inside your organization. Now, analysts are also like very much where AWS with its cloud services. If you actually rely a lot on information from analysts, you might be interested in the reports of these groups. We have always used as sort of an indicator of the growth of the Amazon Web Services, the number of objects in Amazon S3 and in the Amazon Simple Storage Service. And more important than those absolute numbers, although I think they are spectacular, is the trend that you're seeing. Yeah, and actually forget the last bar there. Just look at the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars. Between 2006 and 2011, those are measured at the end of each year. Yeah, and what you see is that between 2010 and 2011, there was more than a doubling of the number of objects in S3. And I believe that really demonstrates the trend that this is growing much faster than exponential. And that's sort of an indicator of how the whole AWS world, the whole AWS business is evolving. Now, the next bar is that already in the first quarter we grew another 150 billion fast. And somewhere in June we saw that we actually had crossed the 1 trillion objects mark in Amazon S3, and we're growing very rapidly in that area. And so, but more importantly, keep in mind, the absolute numbers are fun. It's more the trend that you're seeing that is important. A quick look at the platform. Many of you are already AWS customers, so I won't dwell too long on it. Of course, at the lowest level, there is hardware and infrastructure like hardware. So we have regions with availability zones within region. The availability zone is a separate building. They're in different geographic locations from the other buildings in the same region. They're connected to separate power grids, and they're connected to different tier 1 redundant networks. And then there's edge locations around the world as well. On top of that, we give you control over the networking. And there's different pieces there. There's Amazon Direct Connect that allows you to make connections between on-premise and the cloud if you do not want to rely on the public internet. Virtual Private Cloud is one of the most important tools there is in the Amazon toolshed to give you total control over the network layout of the piece of the cloud that you've cordoned off for yourself. And Route 53 is our DNS service. Then, of course, you have the sort of standard building blocks that you probably all know about. There is compute, there's storage, with familiar names that Joe also already talked about. And then, of course, there's the database services. On top of that sits a whole collection of services that you may not necessarily be familiar with. Now, in the Amazon suite, there are, I think, 36 different services. There's much more in the Amazon cloud than just compute, storage, and databases. In this case, there is, of course, cloud search. There's a simple workflow service. There's a notification service. There's a queuing service. There is simple email service. There's a whole collection of services that actually takes away many of the pain points of things that you needed to do by yourself. And it's not just Amazon there. And what I often like to see is that the Amazon cloud is much larger than just the Amazon Web Services. Many of our partners and many ISVs are delivering services at this level that many of them are actually using, and whether that is BI or whether it's dev and test or whether it's security or analytics, all of these services are available at this level for you to use in a cloud-like manner, because many of these companies are truly demonstrating sort of cloud DNA, allowing you licensing models and payment models that are actually really well aligned with how AWS has developed its business. And then, of course, there is the layers on top of that that actually help you with the management of it. And some of these are very specific. So Amazon Elastic MapReduce, for example, addresses a pattern that we saw quite a bit, where many of our customers would actually execute their own Hadoop or MapReduce clusters or programs on those clusters. And they were actually having quite a bit of trouble with it. Yeah, because it's to really scale that up is hard for them. And so we decided that if those patterns are there, that we just build something called Elastic MapReduce that makes it really easy for our customers to execute those programs. And again, in the presentation this afternoon, I'll be talking a bit more about sort of the principles behind Hadoop MapReduce and Amazon Elastic MapReduce. And there's quite a few management tools. There's security and integration and identity and things like that. And also quite a few companies that are actually operating in the ecosystem as well that give you management tools. And these are sort of the well-known ones out of the US. But for example, yesterday I had the great fortune to get a demo of Wipro's Cloud Command Center, which allows you to gives you total control of all the resources in your cloud with a high-level graphical interface, with finance tracking and things like that. So there's many of our partners that are developing completely new management modules for you to use as well. So with that, that's sort of the state of the art of where we are. I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk a bit with you about the things that make Amazon unique. And not just the Amazon Web Services, but also Amazon.com, the retailer and the digital services company. So this is a slide from a presentation that our CEO, Jeff Bezos, gave not too long ago when he introduced the new Kindle Fires. And this is for me, this was the highlight of the whole presentation, because it actually truly embodies how Amazon thinks about its customers. Shane already mentioned earlier, we want to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. Now, it's easy to think about how that would work in retail. Yeah, there's consumers and individuals and things like that. But for us, it's really important to also think about how can we be the Earth's most customer-centric company as a cloud service provider. What does that mean? Yeah? How can we actually make sure that you as customers at all times are getting exactly the services that you need and that you are fully satisfied at every time, at every moment with the services that we are delivering to you. So there's this last line on this slide from Jeff that says, only win when your customers win. And that is really important for our business, for our cloud business as well. Shane mentioned earlier, one of the things that our customers are often surprised by is that we will sit down with them and to help them figure out how they can save cost on our platform, how they can actually drive their bill down that month. And customers are not used to this. They're used to technology providers that want to actually make much longer-term contracts that actually will try and force a maintenance contract down your throat as well that actually will be almost extortionist. Yeah. And we kind of want you to be in control of this process. And so as an IT executive, I've been on the receiving end of these kind of contracts in the past as well. Yeah, and I've always hated it, because in all of those situations, the vendor was in control. I never felt that as a customer, I was in control. Yeah, they actually decided what would be in their product. They decided what the licensing terms were going to be, and I just had to accept them. And there wasn't that much choice in the market for me to actually be able to reduce my cost while actually get diversity. No, I had to reduce cost and reduce choice at the same time. What we really want to achieve with the Amazon Web Services is that we put control in your hands. that you are going to be, as a consumer of these services, as a customer of ours, you are going to be in control. If we are not doing our best, or we are not absolutely delivering the services with the quality that we wanted, that you expect us to deliver them, you should be allowed to walk away. There should not be any legal construct that binds you onto our platform. Yeah, and that will be the ultimate test. We need to make sure that our customers are satisfied at all times. We have to be on our toes every moment of the day. And I think that's sort of the translation of the principles of being customer-centric. Yeah? We help you. We want to partner with you much more than that we are a vendor to you. Key number one thing that sets us aside, I think, for many other providers in this world is our focus on flexibility. Meaning that there's a technical flexibility at first. Right? You are not locked in to any operating system, to any programming language, to any middleware, and to any use of any particular piece of software from any vendor. If you want to run Windows Server on top of AWS, please do so. Microsoft are great partners with us and will give you support for this platform on us. Many of our customers are actually running Windows, are running standard Microsoft service packages such as SharePoint and Exchange and others on top of the Amazon platform. Many customers are actually developing .NET in C#, developing .NET applications, and are deploying them to Beanstalk. So there's a great ecosystem for many different applications and many different operating systems on our platform. You want to use Oracle Linux? Do you want to use Red Hat Linux? Do you want to use Ubuntu Linux? All of them are supported by their original vendors on the AWS platform. So you have all the choices that you make. Also at the technical level, I've noticed that many of you are engineers in this room. At the technical level, we made sure that all of our services are accessible and controllable by XML over HTTP. Meaning that at no time you are required to use any library in any particular programming language that you do not want to use. Yeah? Just making simple HTTP REST-like calls is sufficient for you to get access to our services. And we've also kept the interface to many of our services very, very simple to make sure that the way that you build your applications, you will always have a transition path to go somewhere else, if that is what you would want to desire. So not locking you in any language or in any of our services is extremely important to us. The second thing that sets Amazon and the Amazon Web Services aside with our focus on you as a customer is our continuous price reductions. In the past 6 years, we have lowered our pricing 20 times without any competitive pressure. At the beginning of this year, in February, we lowered storage cost. And in that month, a number of our larger customers actually saw a drop of 40% in their bill. In March, we lowered our EC2 cost, the compute cost. Then a number of, quite a few customers saw a drop in their bill almost up to 30%. And we are happy with that. Yeah, because we believe that for us, this is a high volume, low margin business, and we're very happy with operating at that low margin scale. And that means that if we can use our innovative and our inventive powers to drive more efficiencies into our platform, if we can build better supply chains, which we at Amazon really know how to do well, and if you as customers help us to create additional economies of scale, all the cost savings that are coming out of that are something that we're going to pass back to our customers, to you, instead of pocketing that ourselves. Yeah, so 20 price reductions in the past 6 years without any competitive pressure. And you can expect us to continue to go down this path. The third thing that sets us aside at AWS is a focus on continuous innovation. And that's a sort of a high-level statement, but you really have to read the piece at the bottom as well, which says, continuously innovate on behalf of the customer. And what does that mean? It means that we will get a service, new service, in your hands, rock solid, yeah, because you need to be able to build your business on it, but often with a minimal feature set. Yeah, and then what we will do is listen very closely to you, how you would like to use the product in your environment by actually starting adding the features that matter most to you. Instead of that, it's the Amazon engineers that are sitting back on the porch, drinking a beer, thinking, oh, we should add secondary indices or something like that. No, it is you that will actually be driving the development agenda for most of the services that we're offering. Of course, we'll do some innovation ourselves as well, and we'll think about new ways in actually providing you with core IT resources, maybe sometimes with interfaces that were unexpected for you. But we will continue to innovate on your behalf. It is to take pain points away from your life, so that you can actually focus on building products instead of having to manage infrastructure. So if you look at sort of the past 5 years, every year we actually accelerated in the way that we were delivering these services. And for this year, I'm pretty sure I won't be able to fit it on this slide anymore, because at the beginning of this year, the first 2 months, we were already at 50 services, major features and services. And I think in the 2 months after that, it was clear that we are continuing to accelerate. More importantly, there are so many cool things coming down the pipe you wouldn't believe. And I'm not going to tell you. So let's look at a few of the things that I thought were major innovations this year. The thing that we launched last week is provisioned IOPS for RDS. I think it's really important to be able to provide clear instructions to the database about what kind of performance you want to get out of it. And provisioned IOPS is a very cool interface to actually do that. I mentioned earlier on that virtual private cloud is a really important tool. So virtual private cloud, also known as Amazon VPC, is the tool that you would use to cordon off a piece of the cloud, assign your own addressing blocks to it, maybe hook it back up to your own data center with a VPN. And any of the resources that you place in that virtual private cloud are bound to the strict rules that you've applied to the networks in the cloud. For example, you can build private networks, public networks, internet gateways, all of these different tools in this world. And that gives you very, very powerful control over exactly where can these nodes communicate with. Can they communicate with the outside world? Can they only communicate back? It is a really important tool for many of our enterprise customers, for example, that are looking to slowly transition services into the cloud, slowly move applications. Often what you will see is that they'll move a number of applications into the cloud, for example, HR applications, and leave some of the core databases still on-premise. There's a few other things that we've done to make it easier for you to work on-premise as well as in the cloud. Direct Connect, you can kind of make 1 or 10 gig connections between your own on-premise environment and the cloud. Storage Gateway allows you to actually run a virtual machine on the cloud, attach local disks or local volumes to it, and then have those volumes be automatically backed up into the cloud as EBS volumes. So if you have to restore from one of those volumes, you can either do that on-premise, or you can actually restore in the cloud. Simple Workflow Service, which we launched earlier this year, actually also has an on-premise component, meaning that if you build extensive workflows, and I think many of you actually have workflows, then you can actually have parts of those workflows do not need to run in the cloud. They can run on-premise as well. And for example, a very popular workflow that you may be using after today is actually the sign-up process for the Amazon Web Services. Yeah, as you can imagine, such a sign-up process goes through multiple steps, and it's a clear example of a workflow engine that is actually making use of the Amazon Simple Workflow Service. Another thing that we've done to make it easier for you to operate both cloud and on-premise is to do federation of identity by using your own identity service, such as Active Directory or LDAP or whatever you're using, and making sure that that's a sort of single sign-on, which then automatically maps onto the credentials and the roles that are being used in the AWS Identity and Access Management world. DynamoDB we launched earlier. It's a NoSQL database. That's something we'll be talking about a bit later in the presentation. Cloud Search was something that many of our customers felt they had a real pain point. Many customers were actually running search themselves, and they either had a commercial product that they were using, which was often hard to configure and not easy to actually really get the good results out of, or they were using open source software such as Solr and Lucene, which was very hard to scale. Because whether your request rates were growing or whether your data sets were growing, it's very hard to scale those kind of environments without just really babysitting and managing them with multiple system administrators. We decided to launch Cloud Search that actually really takes that kind of pain away, where you can have just one place to add your data and to actually tell what kind of queries you want to run against it and get just rock solid results back, where the service scales under the covers. If you increase request rates or you increase your data size, your data sets, Cloud Search will resize automatically under the covers for you. Provisioned IOPS has become a really important tool for us, for you to actually get sort of rock solid performance out of our storage and database services. And I saw a really great blog post by the guys at Parse. Parse is a mobile development platform. And they, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, actually moved their database environment over to EC2 plus running on EBS. They're using Postgres, that's why they're not using RDS. And within a week, they tuned the things to the point where their end-to-end latency towards their customers had dropped in half. There were no longer I/O spikes internally into the network. And all sorts of tricks that they needed to play, such as, for example, warming up their databases, was things that they no longer needed to do. And what I'm seeing is that if you can give this kind of rock-solid performance, then most other pieces in your architecture become simpler. And we'll talk about that in a bit. High I/O instances, if you have a need for SSDs in an instance, then these are the right instances to pick. And we've also done quite a few things in the developer framework. SQL Server and .NET is supported by Beanstalk, but also PHP and Git development. And the last thing actually to touch on is the Amazon Marketplace. The Amazon Marketplace is something that we were asked by our customers to give an environment where they could actually find all the products that they could buy that were given by ISV, that were running by ISVs on our platform. In a sort of, Amazon.com style way. Make it easier to find software that you might want to run in the cloud. And for ISVs, they really wanted an easy way to get in front of all of our hundreds of thousands of businesses that are running on the cloud. So the AWS Marketplace does that. It allows ISVs to bring products to our customers, and it allows our customers to have a familiar Amazon.com approach to buying these services, where they can write reviews and where they can actually make sure that the transaction between them and these vendors are handled by a familiar Amazon.com process. And of course, Glacier is another thing that we launched not too long ago, about a month ago, which is a service for long-term archiving. And we'll be talking about those things later today as well. So I want to close off this sort of morning keynote introduction talk about some transformations that I've seen that are happening in the industry, or in development, actually. So one of the things that you can say it's a common misperception that cloud is only about saving cost. Actually, most of our customers will tell you that saving cost is important. 5 years from now, they won't suddenly start saying like, oh, I love AWS, I wish they were a bit more expensive. That's not going to happen. Yeah, so saving cost will remain very important, but it turns out, and most of our customers say that the agility that they're getting out of the cloud is actually the most important thing. The fact that they can get access to resources whenever they need to, that they can scale up to any size that they need, that they're no longer constrained in their thinking about how to build their systems, how to build their products, is the most important thing. And so, I think that actually cloud transforms what is possible. Yeah, it connects between the dreams that you have and being able to execute on them without having to worry too much about what kind of infrastructure pieces you need to actually implement your dreams. So let's look at a few of these transformations. I think the first one actually comes out of what I call my old stomping ground. This is distributed systems. And in distributed systems, for 10, 15 years, we already knew how to build highly scalable, fault-tolerant applications. The algorithms were there. We just didn't do it. And in the new world, we suddenly see that these new systems are being built. So what's the difference? In the old world, to really be able to do sort of a multi-data center replication, or split your applications to run in multiple data centers so that it could survive any kind of outage or any kind of failure, you actually had to do a lot of work. You had to move servers around, you had to do multi-data center contract negotiations, you had to set up networks, and all of these kind of things before you would even be building your application. And that was just way too much work, way too much trouble for most people, if they would even have the expertise in that. In the new world, all of these things that used to be physical now are programmable. They now have an API. If you want to actually deploy your servers in what used to be called a different data center, you now just pick an availability zone. You can run in multiple availability zones to actually make sure that you can survive most difficult failure scenarios. If you actually are building something here for an Indian audience, you might run out of Singapore. But if you actually get more customers that are, for example, in South America, you may actually want to run your service in South America. Imagine what in the old world, how hard it would have been to actually launch your application in South America. You would have to find data center space, you have to speak the language, you have to do the negotiations on the ground. It is just, businesses wouldn't even do it. And in this new world, regions around the world are programmable. You just pick one. You want to launch a server in Dublin, you want to launch a server in Tokyo, it's at your fingertips. Where in the past, all of these things were hard negotiations. So one of the transformation here really is that things we knew how to do, we knew how to scale, and we knew how to be fault tolerant. The transformation is that we are now actually implementing them. And that we're really building them. And for you, we have a whole center with architectural templates. aws.amazon.com/architecture. A whole set of templates for you to use to build applications that can scale and that can be highly available using our services. Some of our customers actually take this to somewhat to the extreme. This case, Netflix, an important customer to us with great engineering skills, really has taken this resilience to the max. For them, their whole streaming business is fully dependent on their online resources. And their online resources are running on top of AWS. So they need to make sure that the loss of any of those resources does not hamper the overall functioning of the system. So they built a tool called the Chaos Monkey. The Chaos Monkey runs around, basically through their system, and randomly shoots software components. And then their engineers are supposed to have built these software components in such a way that the system can survive even if those kind of components are failing. Now, the great thing that the Netflix guys have done is they've actually made it open source. And if you go onto GitHub and search for Symbian Army, you can download the code for that and start experimenting with doing failure injection in your own systems as well. The second transformation I want to talk to you about is actually in a sort of similar way. We've always known that this was not the right way to do security. Actually, if this was the right way to do security, that would be how all our towns would still look like. And they don't. Just protecting your environment with only a firewall is not sufficient. And so in the old world, we actually wouldn't do anything else than protecting by a firewall because we did not really have the tools to actually protect our systems at much more finer grain level. In the new world of cloud, of the AWS cloud, we give you very, very fine-grained tools to actually protect each individual application that you're building. If you talk to any security professional, they will tell you that most security breaches are not coming by folks that are actually sort of hammering down the castle, but they come through security, through sort of social engineering breaches. Someone sends an email to someone inside your company with a link to actually click on to go to the new updates to her retirement package, and she will land on a page that will inject some evil JavaScript, and at that moment a tunnel has been built between inside the corporation and outside. And the bad guys are in. And so for us, it's really making sure that each of those systems that run either on your premise, if you would want it, but mostly those that you build for the cloud, can all protect themselves. And so on one hand, of course, you get sort of the basic infrastructure that everybody else is. And if you are a small company, you get exactly the same kind of compliance regulations and sort of the levels of security in our infrastructure that are superior. And that many of the largest enterprises are not able to achieve themselves. So a basic infrastructure where, for example, SOC 1 compliance, ISO 27001 compliance, PCI DSS level 1 service provider, all of these things are available for all of you. It's not only that the Shells and the Samsungs of this world are getting this, every business that launches on top of AWS gets this secure infrastructure to start off with. Next to that, we are actually locking down every resource that you create. And whether it's an object in S3 or whether it is actually an EC2 instance that you start, it will be locked down completely. And you will have to explicitly open up those objects for access to the outside world. And we give you security groups and role-based security in terms of this person in this role under those conditions on Friday night between 2 and 4 from that subnet is allowed to actually touch this object but not allowed to delete it. Many of these things. So we give you very fine-grained tools to actually help you secure your systems that, in my eyes, have not been possible before. So the next transformation is also something that we already intuitively knew was coming. Do you guys know the HOF? Do you guys know Knight Rider? Not all of you are old enough, probably. Yeah. So this is actually fun. The HOF talked in a particular to actually make his car go faster. He talked to it. He would just tell the car actually to go faster. And the car would then figure out, you know, how to shift gears, how to use the gas pedal, how to steer, and all of these kind of things. But if we have to drive actually ourselves, you know, if we don't have a car, if we don't have Knight Rider, then of course we have to do all those things by ourselves. And there is an analogy there in the world of, for example, if you want to run large NoSQL databases. In a large NoSQL database, what you have to do, you have to set up the servers, you have to configure and tune it, and you have to start sharding and repartitioning, and then when your data set grows, you have to do that all over again. And actually, this process is actually so complex and so arcane that some of the best paid jobs in Silicon Valley at the moment are NoSQL database administrators. And so there's something wrong, because when we built one of the first NoSQL databases out there originally within Amazon, it was actually to make things simpler, not to make it harder. And so when we looked at all of this, and when we wanted to build our new NoSQL database, DynamoDB, we looked at what kind of controls shall we give to our customers. Yeah, and that will be all sorts of things, partitioning level, connection levels, buffer sizes, block sizes, all of those kind of things. Okay. All of those kind of things. Yeah, and the only reason why you would be doing that as engineers is because you want actually exact the right performance out of your database. That's why you do all this tuning. You want to make sure that your database at all times gives the right performance. Well, if that's why you're doing all that work, then our interface should be that. The interface for management of this database should be exactly where you can say, this is the read performance I want, and that is the write performance I want. And I don't care how you do this behind the covers, as long as that you very solidly, at all times, give me this performance. And so, with DynamoDB, what we've done is we've given you an interface where you can say, okay, give me 100,000 writes a second, and I want to consume 300,000 reads a second, and it will reconfigure itself behind the covers. Yeah, and actually, much better than that can explain this than me, we have a little animation. I think that is there's more appropriate and give you the details of DynamoDB.
When you're building an application, you want it to run fast, and you want it to stay fast as your business grows and more people use your app. Databases have always been one of the biggest challenges in scaling these applications. Most databases just weren't designed to match the scale and performance needs of modern apps. As more and more people use your app, and you add more and more web servers, the database layer often can't keep up. It gets slower and sometimes fails, taking your application down with it. You can try to get around this problem by building a large cluster of databases. This can work for a while, but it's hard and expensive and requires a lot of expertise. You have to make sure your database keeps running and data isn't lost, even if one of your servers goes down or there's a problem with one of your data centers. You have to know what to do if your application grows so fast that your cluster is no longer big enough. And you have to make sure your databases are running the latest software and be ready to patch or upgrade this software without shutting down your business. What if you could replace all this complex software and hardware with a database service designed from the ground up to support the low latency, high throughput requirements of today's high-scale applications? Introducing Amazon DynamoDB, a high-performance, non-relational database service built for the cloud. DynamoDB is very easy to use. You can forget about all the problems that come with managing your own software and infrastructure. That's because DynamoDB isn't database software. It's a database service that handles all of this for you. You just tell the service how many requests it needs to be able to handle per second, and it does the rest automatically. Then, when your application really takes off, and your database now needs to be able to handle thousands or even hundreds of thousands of more requests, what do? You just dial in the scale that you want, and that's it. We automatically spread your data across enough hardware to provide consistent performance and to protect against downtime. And Amazon DynamoDB isn't just easy to use, it's also really fast. Instead of using traditional hard drives, your data is stored on solid-state drives for fast access to your data. In addition to being fast, DynamoDB is also extremely reliable. We automatically replicate your data across multiple AWS availability zones to protect your data and to provide high uptime. Plus, DynamoDB's synchronous replication architecture protects your database from hardware failures in any individual node. And you can get started with DynamoDB for free. So when you're ready to take your database to cloud scale, visit our website and sign up for the free tier of service today.
Actually, there's something really important going on here. Now, if your database can be configured to give exactly the performance that you need, your whole architecture changes. What I've seen earlier this year, I was at South by Southwest, which is a big festival in Austin, in Texas. And there was a panel there with engineers from, I think, Reddit, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, and all of them were talking about scale. That was basically where the panel was about. And all of them confessed to exactly the same story, which was the database is the scaling bottleneck. If your database is going to give you exactly the performance that you ask for, the database is no longer the bottleneck. And we've seen that already with quite a few of our customers. We see that customers are starting to make trade-offs about, do I really need to run these cache servers over here? Because the reason why I had this cache servers was to get sort of guaranteed low latency read performance on them, but I can just tile up the reads on DynamoDB and get it directly out of the database without having to run cache servers. And it's not that there's anything wrong with cache servers, it's just the less moving components that there are in your architecture, the better. And we see that with anybody using DynamoDB with an existing architecture, the bottleneck is shifting from the database to the applications. And that's a good thing. Because really, you do not want your infrastructure to restrict you in any way that you're building your applications, nor do you want to have to jump through hoops in the backend to really make these things scale. These things should scale by itself. And I think as such, DynamoDB is absolutely revolutionizing the way that we are going to be building database systems in the future. There's two more transformations which will actually come back in this afternoon's presentation as well. High-performance compute systems have been really something that only the rich, only the very privileged could use because they were very expensive. You would have to hang on to them for a very long time. Now we're actually, with AWS, be able to give you a supercomputer in the hands of every developer. And this afternoon in the big data presentation, we'll talk about this one as well. And there's also a change at the business level, where in the past, to experiment with a product, to start building something new, you would actually have to get sign-off, or maybe from all the way up, to spend quite a bit of money on hardware before you could start doing experimenting with building a new product. A good example was recently when I was in Australia. I met with the folks from News International there. In their dev and test environment, which is a complete copy of their CMS system that manages all the newspapers and things like that, would take 56 days to set up. And of course, you can imagine there's quite a bit of hardware involved, there's quite a bit of people involved with that setup. Before you do that, there's a significant price tag associated with it. But they actually moved to AWS with that environment, and now they can set it up in 6 hours. At just a fraction of the cost that it was before. You can imagine that if it costs so little and goes and is able to do so fast, you are going to experiment with building a lot more products. And especially the world where they are in, for example, the world of media, they're all looking for new ways to monetize their content. So experimentation at business level is really important for them. And cloud enables that. This afternoon, again, we'll be talking a lot about big data and with big servers. One of our customers on the panel, fortunately, is also an expert in big data, so we may hear already some experiences from him as well. And the last two transformations I want to talk to you about are about mobile. Recently, someone asked me, what would you do if you could do Amazon.com again? And the first thing that came up in my mind was, I would build it for mobile first. And Jeff Bezos already has said as well that he expects that in a few years from now, that the majority of the orders coming to Amazon.com will not be coming from a PC. They will not be coming from a static screen. They will be coming from some sort of handheld, mobile, connected device. And what form that will have, I think in the coming few years, we'll see revolutionary new devices appear. And so, but building things for building applications for mobile is not that trivial these days. There's so many things that you have to think about because the bar is really high. It needs to have a really rich media experience. It needs to be aware where it is, not only what the location is, it needs to know what the weather is and what the traffic conditions are, and all of these things, how many other people there are in this room. You need to be able to get access to your social graph. It needs to be able to handle user-generated content. It needs to have recommendations, and you need to be able to make money with it. And there's sort of 3 different ways of making money today. I think it's either with virtual goods, if you're a gaming environment. You do advertisement, and the folks from InMobi are here today, so we're very fortunate to hear by them how they're using AWS. Or you use sort of any a subscription-based or premium support mechanism. To do all these things, these are just the cost of doing business or building a mobile application. And so what you have again in the Amazon cloud, in AWS, is that there are so many services built by other companies that you can use to immediately stitch together the basic functionality that you want for your app and then innovate on top of that. Yeah, do you need virtual goods? You'll use Social Gold. Do you need recommendations? You use Directed Edge. Do you need sort of telco functionalities inside of your app? You'll use Twilio. Yeah, or if you use subscriptions, you'll use Chargify. All of these things connect together as a service that you can use. Yeah, and then on top of that, you can innovate and build your own systems. The last transformation that is happening is that content no longer lives on your device. Yeah, where in the past, if you would have one of these devices, you would plug it in with a USB cable into your computer and you would copy the music and movie files over. That's something of the past. These mobile devices are a window to all the content and all the documents that you own. Yeah, you need to be, and it's already visible sort of in the Kindle ecosystem. I can be on the couch reading my Kindle, reading a book. I step into the car continues to read to me the story that I was reading. I'm in the shop, I'm standing in the checkout line, I pull my phone out and I continue to read where I was reading. It's not that the book lives on any of these devices, it's a window into that world. Yeah, when I in the morning here, and this is not so far, I want to be able to get out of bed, go to the gym in the hotel, step on the treadmill, identify who I am, maybe using my phone, and then immediately the treadmill changes into my environment, with my content, with my music, with my books, with my documents, with my newspaper subscriptions. All of that stuff should follow me. Yeah, and so where in the past, all of this data would actually live on the individual devices. The transformation that we're seeing is that everything lives in the cloud. And if you actually are a company or have applications that are generating data, make sure that data lives in the cloud so that you can actually provide your customers a view onto that data with any device that they will be holding in the future. Now, I hope that I've kind of given you a sort of an idea about where we are at the moment and what kind of impact we've had on how systems are being built. The original AWS mission was this, to enable businesses and developers to use web services, what we now know as the cloud, to build scalable, sophisticated applications. And you can all start doing that. So remember, there is a free tier for you available to start using immediately. And also, if there's any startups in the audience here, I would urge you to take part in the Startup Challenge. Yeah, there's 4 different categories that you can sign up for. There's big data, there's gaming, there's consumer apps and business apps. And in each of those, there will be major prizes, both in terms of cash as well as in AWS credits. With that, you can always reach me at Amazon. I'm Werner at Amazon, or I'm also Werner at Twitter. And I'm always open for your feedback. With that, I will actually go over to the next section, which is to have the highlight of this morning, our customer panel, to be on stage. With that, I would first like to invite Ravi Garikipati up on stage of 24/7 Innovation Labs, please. Pawan Gupta from Eros. You guys all know this guy, yeah? If you're into Bollywood or into the movies, you need to know the guys of Eros, yeah? Hook them up later on, Free subscriptions for Eros now. Mohit from InMobi. And Arun Goyal from MPS. Please come. So how are you going to do this? Yeah, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to actually introduce themselves a bit, tell a bit about their business, and maybe give a bit of a lift up, a bit of the feel about how they're actually using AWS. And then pretty quickly we'll go to questions in the audience. So if you have questions for these guys, start thinking about them. Soon we'll have people running around with microphones to actually catch your questions. So with that, please tell me, who are you, and what is your company, and what are you doing with AWS?
Good morning, everyone, and that's an excellent presentation, Dr. Vogels, and it's really informative. I'm Ravi Garikipati, the President and Chief Technology Officer of 24/7. The company has been in existence for about 10 years, and what we do essentially is customer experience and customer service for enterprise clients. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we at Innovation Labs revolutionized how we do customer experience, and we do it through a software platform delivered in the cloud. And our mission statement is basically get our enterprise clients connect with their consumers through an intuitive consumer experience platform that we build, which is largely driven off of big data analytics, and that's essentially what we do. And a pleasure to be here today in front of all of you. And we rely quite a bit on AWS, especially our web side of interactions. As a platform, we interface with our clients and users across various channels, and be it online interactions or speech interactions over IVR platform, mobile, and social media, and so on and so forth. And where AWS comes into play for us is as it relates to our interactions in the online space. And we'll talk about it later as context is relevant.
Thank you. Pawan.
I'm Pawan Gupta. I'm the CTO and SVP for Eros. Eros traditionally has been a content producer. We produce movies and distribute movies across the globe. Of late, and this is probably of interest here, is we're looking at a digital initiative where we have a service where we're making all the content, all the movies online, and on a normal subscription basis, you can access these movies anytime, anywhere. And we pretty much using Amazon for the digital initiative.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Mohit. I'm from InMobi, and InMobi is the largest independent mobile ad network in the world. We are right behind Google in most of the region, and initially we started in 2008 just being a purely mobile ad network, and later this part of the year and subsequently year we are becoming a mobile infrastructure company where we'll not be just monetizing the ads within the app or mobile ecosystem, but we'll also be providing app intelligence, user context information, and several other products related to monetization and its tracking. We started our operation and our company in 2008, and today we have a massive scale, including all our product. We serve more than 4 billion requests per day, and today we are running in a mixed hybrid environment where we have our own data center, and then we are very fast adopting to AWS. And the main reason of adopting to AWS is we have rock star operation and engineers in the company, and they are building products so fast that it's almost impossible to manage and basically launch those products on our own data center. And AWS is basically give us the flexibility to go out and, like Dr. Werner said, experiment fast, fail fast, and figure out how basically we contribute to the ecosystem.
Hi, I'm Arun Goyal. I'm from MPS. This is a publishing services company, and this is one of the oldest BPO in India. What we do is that we help navigate the way Amazon helped the IT community to navigate in the cloud. We help navigate publishers to navigate in the new era of business. So we transform their content for delivery onto the print media and online on the mobile. And also we have got e-learning and e-learning division, and also different divisions which we have. So this essentially is this particular Amazon Web Service we started considering when one of the link in our chain from author to the reader. That is the last block, which is the content store, where the publishers put their books to be delivered, to be downloaded by the retailers. So there we had the servers hosted in Reston already, and these servers we had hosted in 2007, and this whole server block was requiring refreshing because we were having certain SLAs issues in terms of because the volume growth which we had and the servers configuration had become old. So then we started looking at different means, like we thought that probably we'll buy another set of servers, we'll host them again, or alternatively we will buy the private data center servers, or alternatively we can look at the clouds which are available. So of course the initial hitch was that Amazon was not having we started this about 5 months back. That time Amazon was not having that much presence in India, so we did not have any face to talk to. But then we started on our own. We did the POC for building up for these servers and then testing out our application, and we found that this is the most cost-effective way of hosting. And I'm glad to share that whatever cost we were paying for the hosting the servers earlier, in less than that we could refresh our server whole footprint, as well as in less than that we were hosting our services out over there. So these services are still there on the cloud.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I think there's one question that I would like to ask before we go on to the audience, is that when you decided, or when you were considering cloud, you must have had doubts, or maybe, yeah? What were, or maybe some of your stakeholders, or maybe some other partners in your or maybe even people in your IT department had doubts about whether this was the right path to pursue. What were those kind of doubts, and how were you able to overcome them, given that you have started on this journey now?
Yeah. So, yeah. Speaking of my own experiences, here at Innovation Labs, most of the folks believe in, experiment. Frequently fail fast before you get to your holy grail, right? That's been our motto, and the kind of agility with which we were exploring a bunch of different ideas as we were trying to revolutionize consumer experience. We wanted our partners in the ecosystem to be agile enough to support our endeavors, and like Dr. said in his presentation, oftentimes you do come across IT being the showstopper or a blocker, and not to badmouth about those guys, and they have their own roadmap, and in order for them to sort of stop everything that they've signed up for the year and support what you need to do, it's a big ask, and so we really had to figure out other means of actually getting our initiatives addressed, and that's when we sort of embarked on AWS. It essentially started as a skunk work that we were doing within our innovation labs, and then we were amazed ourselves the kind of service levels that we experienced, the kind of flexibility the infrastructure offered, and one thing leading to another. We actually rolled out our first production solution in the cloud for one particular channel. Like I said in the beginning, our platform multi-channel, multimodal driven. It supports interactions across various platforms, and today we support close to about 2.5 billion interactions a year. We collect close to about 3.5 terabytes of data any given week, and it would have been a big ask to sort of port everything into something like Amazon Cloud, not knowing what are some of the surprises that we'll be embarked on. So we said let's focus on our online stuff, and the reason why we kind of picked up online interactions is there's some sort of elasticity that's implicitly there in that space, and our enterprise clients are typically the likes of Sears in retail, Sears and Target, Kohl's, Best Buy. These are the big brands in US, and our telcos are typically the Verizons, AT&Ts. In APAC, it's Telstra and Optus and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of seasonality to their site traffic, and what we essentially do is we basically serve all the enterprise clients, consumers who happen to be on their website, leaving a bunch of different signals as they are traversing their websites. And then that's where our predictive analytics come into play, and we target the right customers for the right intent at the right time and deliver that delightful, intuitive consumer experience. So essentially, the entire CS traffic is our traffic, entire target traffic is our traffic. They all flow through our platform. So there's a certain degree of velocity already there. And for us to be able to provision the hardware and build the infrastructure is a big, big ask. And so that's when kind of we looked at Amazon and how they architected the whole elastic computing and the auto scaling. It sort of lent into our requirements pretty well. And we started obviously with 1 or 2 clients, and over time we felt comfortable. And now today all our online interactions are basically delivered through Amazon Cloud. And so much so that now internally our IT has started to sort of realize the benefits of delivering these services through cloud, and they've built in-house competencies to be able to manage this infrastructure effectively using some of the Amazon infrastructure tools and services.
Pawan, did you experience any, let's say, obstacles or obstructions internally when you decided to, or at least considered cloud as the basis for Eros now?
Yes, so Eros, Eros, is a fairly, traditional operations, which is our movie production, post-production, and distribution. We are highly digitalized in-house operations, and everything is pretty much in-house in those flows. So when we started looking at, designing our digital service, there was this big debate of doing everything in-house, including our data operations and data centers, versus looking at something external. But I think once we start doing our mathematics, and I'll share some of them, back to the envelope calculations, we own about 2,000 Hindi movies in a catalog. And on average, our mesh size about 60 GB per movie, and that's 120 TB. Plus, we have about 15 to 24 files depending on the devices and the platforms. That's another about 120, so 240 TB. We add about 70 to 100 movies per year, and then you also have a parallel 2,000 movie catalog in Tamil. So, before even we could launch a service, I had this whole problem of building a whole data center, storage farm. Then also, this is only this is the storage aspect. Then also the whole processing aspect in terms of transcoding all this into multiple profiles on the fly. So I think the conclusion was that we cannot do it in-house. If we have to do it, I have to probably need 2 to 3 years and probably huge money. So it's kind of a very easy decision for us in that sense. Of course, there were concerns. I think first and foremost, being a content company, is the security of the content, because it's not in a safe environment that we are normally used to. But I think what we did and how we kind of addressed this was we turned the question around. So how do we address security? If I have to own it in-house, how do I address it? Versus if another company like Amazon is hosting it, and how they are addressing it. And point to point, once we answer those questions, I think it was easy to get to a decision.
Thank you. So Mohit, can I ask you a different question? You've guys had your own environment. I mean, you still have your own environment. You still have an on-premise environment, and you have a cloud. So is development different for these two worlds? I mean, is it the way that your engineers actually, the skills your engineers need to have to operate in the cloud environment, are those different skills? Or is deployment, configuration, things like that, is it different? Or do you have a uniform environment that spans both?
I think it's a process. We were running on a bare metal hardware for quite some time, 2 to 3 years, and then the whole culture, the way you launch product, the way you run operation, start to get very, customized to what you do. Moving to cloud, all of a sudden, we went through the process, where even we started with using cloud itself like a bare metal infrastructure. But I think all the changes that we have gone through and we will go through, I think we are still not there yet 100%. are good for us because it culturally brings a very different point, the way you write product. You know, they should not be hardware aware, they should not basically have a hard binding to the underpinning around it. And like you said, even in mobile, the content is all over the place. Even the experience, rich media that we serve, a user can be coming from Thailand, another one can be coming from Brazil. And it's almost impossible to have your own data center at every place across the globe. We are not in DC business, so that's where I don't want to focus. I want to focus on the right engineering and right products so that we can serve the customer in the best possible way. And having said that, I think it's a necessary for us to think elasticity, for us to think about resources that are available when they are needed and not available when they are not needed. So yes, it does have impact on the way you think about engineering. It does have impact on the architecture. Like you said, our architecture was very different based on, you know, you understand the database is sitting over there and that's how I'm going to use it, versus it's distributed and it's not there in that form and shape and format, but but in the end, this is for the good of entire engineering and product that we are building.
Thank you. Arun, can I ask you something? If you think about the sort of next generation engineers or IT leaders or whatever that you would hire into your organization, does cloud come into play? Are you looking for different styles of engineers now that would be able to use cloud versus what you would do, or maybe administrators that you would do in the past?
Yeah, I think I would just share that we have a different types of, like, we have data center at different places. Some data centers we have in our business units, which is in Dehradun, Gurgaon, and Bangalore and Chennai. And another data center which we had was in US. Initially, as I told you, that our main driver was that we had to find alternative of our whatever application which we are hosting onto the physical data servers, onto some other set of servers. So we did not really do much of the engineering in the applications. We just we just migrated those applications what we were hosting earlier onto this platform. And of course, we got the added advantage in terms of the scalability, which earlier we used to raise the ticket for doing any simple modifications or doing any changes in the way we had configured our data center out over there. Now it is easy. We have the administrative console. And as far as your question of the different kinds of people which will be requiring, I don't think so. I think that, of course, you need to, since this is a new environment, so initial there will be a learning curve, but then these kind of servers will be, they're like any other servers, and they're just a medium for hosting the application. And I think I would just like to say that, we all are aware of the 5 sins, the 7 sins. It's a lust, greed, pride, envy, sloth, wrath. I think the sloth is something which one need to guide as far as the cloud deployment is concerned, because it's easy to subscribe to a server by using a credit card, and people may not know, they just may forget. But you may not be knowing about that there is some server lying somewhere. So I think we need to follow the process as Mohit said. It's whatever processes which we were following earlier. So I think we need to be following the same process of identifying what we need, drawing a proper roadmap of acquiring these servers in the cloud. I think we have to be more process oriented when we are using the external clouds and external clouds.
Thank you. Can we? Any questions in the audience? Up front here. That was easy.
Dr. Vogel, good morning, and thank you for your time. Yeah. I have a question. Like, I saw your customer base. I didn't see any healthcare organizations or banking sector there. How big are these customers? Are they not moving to cloud?
Yeah, go. Actually, so I will be most useful of your time if you actually have questions for the panel instead of me. I'll answer this one. So are there particular segments like finance and healthcare that are not moving to the cloud? Actually, if they were not on the slide, then that's an omission. I think we have customers in the finance space that are doing internet banking on us. We have customers like Bank Inter and others that do financial and risk analysis on top of us. Actually, and we recently launched, together with the NASDAQ, in collaboration with NASDAQ, something called FinCloud, Financial Cloud, where the partners or the customers of the NASDAQ can actually store their sensitive documents that are subject to all sorts of regulations around the world with the NASDAQ. So financial services, absolutely. Healthcare, identically. Glacier, for example, is a service that many healthcare institutions really would love to use for long-term document storage. We have many of our customers in the healthcare space need to be HIPAA certified, this Healthcare Information Protection Act. And we have a whole document on our website that helps those customers actually change their architectures so that they can actually get the HIPAA certification that they need. So in both of those segments, it's true. Actually, there is no segment that I know of that is not using the Amazon Web Services. Other questions?
Anand from India Tech Online. We are thrilled to look at 4 role models for us in India, and by happy coincidence they are all putting their data on Amazon. I'd like to ask the members of the panel whether you have at any time faced any regulatory issues, because you have operations going across different countries. Have there been instances where they have said, look, if you want, your data must be within our geography or something like that? So has that been a problem when working with a global company like Amazon?
Anyone wants to take a shot at that?
So in our case, there are some countries, especially in the European Union and China, where they ask you to basically have certain amount of information reside in that location. But like I said, having your own data center or AWS, you can have that physical instance or region in that place to comply those laws. But yes, there are certain scenarios where you have to keep some information and store some information in certain location. And when you are planning a global scale, that is always a component that needs to be planned, no matter whether you are using cloud or you are using your own DC. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's always like, yeah, so it's always building your own data center or basically getting your own apparatus set up is a long process. It takes around sometimes from 3 months to 4 months, and talking to vendor, figuring out who is the best partner. While in Amazon, I think in all fairness, you can start in few hours, if not days, or and then you can have that system up and running.
Yeah, but I find is that on one hand, Indian customers are often targeting the Indian market, but quite a few of the companies that actually are using the Amazon cloud from India are actually targeting a worldwide audience. Yeah, and so it gives them sort of both. In terms of the regulatory requirements, there is a number of industries where they have regulatory requirements that often have to do with data residency and things like that. But even for those industries, actually often only 5 or 10% of the sort of information that we're talking about is subject to that. And there's still many things within their organization where for which cloud can actually help them be more effective.
Hi, it's Ritvik from KVP. The question is for Ravi. Are you also managing your VoIP services on AWS? And are you storing the recordings there? And how do you access it? And where is it?
At this juncture, I kind of mentioned early part of my introduction. Amazon platform is primarily being used for online interactions. We do have a IVR platform. We do have speech interactions that we deliver through our platform that's largely in-house, our own data centers. So I can't answer to that emphatically. We've been dabbling few things on the cloud, but not production quality yet, right? It's largely online interactions and a pretty big number as such. We're close to 100 million interactions that we facilitate through our platform any given month for all our clients across BFS. And somebody had questions around BFS. We have cities of the world and Bank of Americas and Capital One. They go through our platform, hosted in the cloud and served by Amazon.
Question at the back there.
Hey, this is Shantanu. I have the question for Ravi. I believe a major part of your work is with analytics when you conclude the customer experience. So on that point, would you consider the storage or the computing power of AWS more? With respect to the costs which you put in, the cost regulations which you put in, how much investment would you do or you actually do right now? Is it more into the computing power or is it more into the storage for the analytic applications?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's a combination of both, and today, and I kind of mentioned some of the stats as well. Just across all channels, we collect close to about 4.5 terabytes of data in a given week, right? And our customer footprint is expanding, and it's growing rapidly. We're seeing a tremendous traction in the marketplace for our analytics-driven solutions, right? So, and being able to sort of, have an efficient, effective storage is, and that's cost-effective, is very important. At the same time, we also do quite a bit of computing, and big data is not just being able to collect, data from various channels. It's also being able to, do the analytics on top, and that's where the computing comes into play as well. And today, to be very honest, at this juncture, a lot of big data that I've talked about is as it relates to Amazon is primarily on the storage front. We've started putting together EMR kind of infrastructure to be able to do some serious analytics on top of that, and essentially we build is what we call as analytical data models that actually go into our modeling studio for our data scientists to crank out a bunch of different analytical models. So there's a thought process internally that we're going through whether the computing could be set up in-house. That said, at this juncture, we actually even piggyback on that piece, piggyback on Amazon infrastructure even for that piece as well. We use EMR. So the current thinking is, we continue to use storage even in future, and at some point in time, we probably have to bring our own computing in-house, right? And to be brutally honest here, we haven't done the necessary math, and we haven't necessarily evaluated the pros and cons with the both approaches. But storage, we know it's a given. We're going to rely on S3.
So we'll do one last question from the back there before I ask these gentlemen to maybe whether they have some advice for you.
Yeah. So I'm Raghavendra Rao, and this is a question to the panel. I would like to know what is the cycle time reduction that you have achieved in going live with your new services after having adopted AWS.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, I would like to know what is the cycle time reduction. Basically, what's the reduction in the time that you have achieved when going live with new business services after adopting AWS?
So I think let me take this one. So I'll be continuing what I said. Like if I have to draw a parallel track, if we started on our own, we talked about storage. Setting up a storage center of about 300 to 400 petabyte, and then also computing power around it. And also as we build the product, the planning that goes with building a product as well as planning the infrastructure around it. So we just done away with that part where we spend time when you're doing a product design. At the time, we were not thinking too much about logistics of the hosting environment, the logistics of your data centers, because that we kind of delegated to Amazon and take care of that, and which I experienced in the last 1 year, they've been doing fairly well. Of course, there are things we probably would like them to add on to what they currently offer, but overall, they've taken the pain of the planning and also the thing. And if any of you done where you basically build and manage a data center, especially in an environment in India where the basic infrastructure is still coming up there, it is never an easy job, and it is a full-time management job to basically build and also operate a data center in this thing. So that part is taken off, and I don't think it requires a lot of mathematics to do that calculation in terms of how much the saving. In our case, I don't think we'd have launched the service for a year if we have done with our own kind of environment. no, at least a service at a scale that we've done, we couldn't have done it.
So thank you very much for your questions. Arun, can I start with you? Do you have some advice for people in the audience that may be considering cloud?
Can you repeat that? I don't know.
Do you have some advice for people in the audience with respect to cloud?
Okay. I think, as I shared earlier, that I think it is important that we prepare a proper roadmap for this service as well. And also, initially, we may have a temptation of going in for the low-end support from AWS, which we had, and where you get a turnaround of 24 hours, which is really not very helpful. So initially, in the initial stages, one should go for a premier support where you can talk to the support, customer support online and get necessary support. I think these are the two things I would like to share.
Mohit, some wise words.
So my thought is, if you are a startup and if you are a small team, I think it's always very important to focus on product and engineering, and basically don't try to reinvent the wheel. And I think cloud can be a very good partner in that way. We were a very different company. We started the opposite side, but let me tell you, it's very hard. And the reason we were able to do that, there were some great people with us, and we were just lucky. Otherwise, it's in nowadays, if I have to do all over again, I think we can cut down the iteration cycle, but by just going directly to the cloud and not spend that much money and focus initially in operation, because it's very hard. It's very hard, and it's really a very difficult skill set for anybody to have all the time.
Pawan, do you have any advice?
So I will recommend people, especially who are starting off, to start off with the cloud and look at your basic core computing, your storage, your compute power, and then maybe a couple of database options that you have. But I will also throw in a bit of caution, because I think from my experience, and probably you may not like what I say now, but what we've observed is you have to be cautious in terms of when you're adapting a higher level of the services that Amazon is rolling out right now. Because my view is, because now they're building an abstraction which will work across their various customers, you will, at some point of time, you may face some limitations, some restrictions that you probably would have you like to leverage when you start growing your product and it becomes more feature rich. So that's more of a caution I throw it. Evaluate some of these higher level services, make sure that they can, it fits in your long-term roadmap. And then I think, yes, in general, you should explore the cloud option for your product.
Ravi?
Yeah, I'm fundamentally, I'm a big believer of cloud, whether it's Amazon cloud or any other cloud out there. And even if I have to build my own thing, it's mostly on the fundamental principles of what cloud could do to computing in general, right? So that's how I believe. And that said, I'm a product guy and an innovations guy. And like Mohit said, that I would have my engineers focusing on building IP and innovations, right? And in this day and age, I almost believe it's a shame if you start sort of spending your precious engineering cycles on some of the things that became commoditized, and it's a given, right, in this day and age. The web scale kind of architectural challenges that we had back in 99 and 2000 are no more challenges, right? And the kind of stuff that Dr. Vogels shared this morning as part of transformational story is fairly evident that those things are going to only get better, and the folks like Amazon or XYZ ABC would take them as challenges and get it done for us, right? So I know there's a belief in the beginning, even in our own think tank, that we would probably go after low-hanging fruits, and there's lots of unknowns, and in terms of availability, in terms of security, and what have you, right? And I believe it's only a matter of time, and companies like Amazon would get their head around and start to address that. I'm pretty enthused with the kind of effort they placed in the recent past to alleviate some of the apprehensions our enterprise clients have around security. I mean, some of the certifications that they've got for themselves is going to take away some of the concerns for enterprise clients. And similarly, the kind of scaling problems that we oftentimes deal with on the database side. Database is your single most choking or a bottlenecking point in your architecture, right? And the kind of stuff that they're doing there is again very enthusiastic, right? So I believe a cloud is way to go, and especially in this day and age when you deliver software as a service, it's mostly multi-tenanted, and the kind of nuances that you would have to grapple with if you have to build your own infrastructure and data centers is just way too much, and it takes away your precious time from innovating and building your IP for your customers. So,
thank you. I would actually invite Shane to come back on stage. Please wait for a moment. I would like to end. Shane, please come on stage. I'd like to end with some of the words that I've heard on an earlier panel in terms of advice. It's that Amazon allows you to think big, but you can start small. There's no need for you to actually think about how to move 100% of your architecture immediately over to AWS. You can start small, you can experiment, and you can take it from there. So think big.